Where's Laura? Oh, there you are. Funny how people are like blending into the word work today. Look right at them and don't see them. Laura is our presidente of our Board of Trustees. A few weeks ago, just before I left for my work in Kansas City, we made an announcement to the congregation that it has become abundantly clear to me it's time for me to move the trajectory of my career. So in our May board meeting, I proposed a couple of different options with the board, and they met, talked over those options, and at the time decided, let's look at having a halftime minister, which would be quite a load off, shall we say, of our annual budget. So then I left for Kansas City, and then we had a community meeting, getting everyone's input. And after I got back from Kansas City, I discovered that the board has made a different decision. So we want to share that with you. Did I cover it?
Sure. Yes, so the board has met a lot, right? A lot. And we have listened to the congregation, and we feel we're not quite ready for a halftime ministry just yet. And so we went back to one of the other options that was presented, and which was to not renew the contract at the end of this year. And then when Brenda came back from Kansas City and we talked some more,
I changed my mind.
She changed her mind. So we have lots of changing going on. So you want to share your part now?
My part is that July, this month, will be my last month up here on the platform, and I will be taking the months of August and September. There's something that is essential that's included in ministers' contracts, and that is something called sabbatical. And the short story is I really reached burnout, serious burnout, about 3 or so years ago. We've had conversations about it. We don't quite know what to do with it, we don't know what to do with it. And have yet to talk to a minister in the field that does know what to do with burnout. So I should write a book. Clearly. So when the news came that we weren't going to proceed with a halftime option, again, it was abundantly clear to me that my time is done. And so obviously I'm with you today. I'll be with you next weekend. And the following weekend, I get to be in Chicago and for the first time ever see my daughter-in-law compete. She is a horse jumper rider. And I get to watch her compete and help my son mind 2 6-year-olds and a 2-year-old at an event, which should be a piece of cake, I'm thinking. And then I will return. I don't have the dates in front of me, but the last Sunday in June will be as far as I know, my last message.
July 29th. Right?
July. Did I say June? July. This month.
July. And so I had a couple of things. The first thing I need to say, and I speak for the entire board when I say this, is that we love Brenda and have and always will. And we love Unity Cedar Rapids and always will. So just know those two things, and we know that that's how we will move forward, just knowing that. And so we have a lot of work ahead of us.
And we know that God is in the midst.
And God is in the midst, yes, standing under all things. So we'll share more with you as we know it. We have to contact Unity Worldwide, and we'll do that tomorrow. And then they send us a packet of stuff, and then we have to form a search team of congregants, and then the board will have to decide whether to have a temporary minister or jump right into the search or whatever we want to do. We have to kind of work through that. And we don't want to rush any decisions. We want to make the right decisions. So we need your feedback. And we need all of you. You know, all these songs today, holy cow, Nina, you are just tearing me up. Wherever we go in love. Wherever we go, we are one. And, you know, this is
Truly.
Our church, and it's our roots. Where's Carla? You know, our roots are here. And this is, you know, we're strong, and we can bend with the change, and we won't break. But we need everybody to help us in any way that you can. You know, just we'll let you know how you can participate, and if you can't do anything else, just pray. Just pray and know that we're all one community, and change is okay, and we'll survive, and that, you know, love is what's got us grounded, and we'll just hold that thought. That's all I got. Thank you.
Two random thoughts crossed my mind. One is when I was at convention in Kansas City in June, two of the ministers who had interviewed here in 2008 saw me and were wondering how things were going and so forth. And they both said, "Man, you guys had a huge search team. It was crazy." So I'm just sharing that. And the other random thought is, y'all may not know, but Unity of Cedar Rapids is one of the 4 or 5 oldest ministries in our entire movement. So when Laura talks about roots, our roots are very deep, and our roots are unbreakable. Will they change and bend and grow? I hope so. It's named Unity Movement, not Unity Status Quo. And the other random thought is, in the movement in general, Unity Center of Cedar Rapids has a really nice reputation. Ministers know that we have a healthy congregation, and some ministers in our region know that we're often on the cutting edge of how we do things and the way our spiritual community operates. And we don't chew up ministers and spit them out every 2 years. You would be amazed at the number of ministries that do have a habit of doing that. And I lost count. I think we're coming up on 90, what's 2018 minus 1924? See, it's a hard question. What is it? 94. So we're coming up on September 4th. We're coming up on 94 years. And in that 94 years, we've had something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm the 7th minister in 94 years, which is unheard of in the ministry. Enough about that. So, you want to know what we're here to learn about today? It was inspired at the Unity Convention. I was in the bookstore where I found this wonderful book by one of my favorite Unity ministers, Reverend Eric Butterworth, who left the planet while I was in ministerial school, actually, 2004. He and James Dillett Freeman left the planet in the same year. And this book is called Practical Metaphysics. So what I was inspired is when I was at the register ringing up my purchases, you know, you put your debit card in there and the screen says you are approved. And I'm always so happy to see that message. It's just nice to know. It's just nice to know you are approved. Can you hear that? And can you know that? With all of our flaws and our foibles and our screw-ups and our greatness, we are approved. How many of you are aware of what my license plate says? It says more than divine. You are. You are divine. I remember about 20-some years ago sitting in that row, second chair in, and as a congregant, I used to be a regular person, and I soon will be again. I don't think I know how to do that, though. So anyway, I was sitting in that chair, and our then minister uttered the word metaphysics, practical metaphysics. And my friend who was sitting next to me leaned over and he whispered, "What does that mean?" I remember in that moment, I had a vague idea of the meaning, but not really any cogent words with which to describe the term. In that instant, I made a commitment with myself that I would study metaphysics deeply. And to this day, it is my favorite element of every corner of Unity's teachings. So here's what Butterworth says about practical metaphysics. Practical metaphysics, or the practice of the presence of God. Catch that. The practice of the presence of God is relating all things to the God process and identifying a channel for the allness. We know in Unity you can put ness on the end of any word. Identifying a channel for the allness. It's getting ourselves in tune and working from that consciousness. And he goes on to say, metaphysics is a perception of a higher dimension of the physical. Practical metaphysics is the persistent attempt to relate to the reality beyond appearances, but as a dimension of that experience. So cool. Practical metaphysics is our persistent attempt to relate to the reality, capital R, beyond appearances, beyond what shows up to our human eye, and to see that as a dimension of the experience. So here's an example of that. I had that fall in February on the ice and bonked my head, diagnosed with brain injury, took a sabbatical, did some treatment, and my study during that 40-day sabbatical was about balance. So do you see the metaphysical implication? Not only was I working on my physical balance, but obviously very deeply my spiritual and emotional balance. So I tend to think of metaphysics as a way of seeing life. I don't tend to, I do. I see metaphysics as a way of doing life. It is the lens through which I see my world. So he has some more good stuff in here on that. Oh, we've lived most of our lives at what the Irish poet William Butler Yeats calls the whirling circumference of life. Isn't that a great image? Did anybody ever feel like you're on the whirling circumference? We've lived out at the circumference, out in human experience. In metaphysical insight, we realize there is a depth within us. There's something more involved in life that you can't actually understand by appearances at the circumference. We can never really know who we are by looking at ourselves in a mirror. There's always something more, something deeper, something richer, something finer. One metaphysical concept is that though humankind in and of itself is flawed, newsflash, anybody ever meet a perfect person, including the person that you initially fell in love with and chose to make a life with? Remember how we thought they were perfect? How come I don't see Bill Graham in the room? So humankind is flawed, and our world, at least through these very expensive multifocal lenses, the world appears to be imperfect. And there still exists a perfect whole. Yes? Yes. Students of metaphysics know this perfect whole as the absolute realm, uppercase A, absolute realm. It is the realm of what I call God mind. It is the realm of law, divine law, principle, unchanging truth. And in our relative realm, we work on such a, flexible, tentative basis. My mind changes based on this information. Oh, this looks like that to me, but to Kate, it looks very different. That's the difference between the absolute realm, divine mind, and our relative earthly realm. Some of us may call that realm God, and Butterworth calls it the allness. So this allness that we're talking about today, that we often call God, is also known as divine law, divine life, divine love, divine mind, omniscience, not omnipotent, omnipotence, omniscience, omnipresence, divine principle, source, spirit, substance. And there's a million other names for God. So let us know that God has, from our lens, right, multiple identities. Now this absolute realm, this God mind is invisible to our human eye, and yet it exists. I remember having a huge debate one day in our Bible class about the idea of heaven. And we had two different groups set up to debate, does heaven exist if I don't know about it? Or does it still exist? Can I know that it exists even if I have no realization of it? That's the way it is with the absolute realm. It exists. Whether I see it, whether I know it, whether I realize it, whether I do my life as though there is an absolute realm. And I believe it's the study of metaphysics that gives us a foothold in both this relative realm and the absolute realm. We can look at this current situation that we're living with as a ministry and go, this is messy. But what do we know for sure? Spirit is in our midst. Source always provides, in all ways. Yes, it's messy. You know why? Because we're still in the human experience. And yes, truth still stands. Butterworth makes another really interesting point. This is, I left out a lot, but this is just information from one little chapter in this book. Is our new shipment in, Miss? Okay, be here Wednesday or Thursday, so these will be available next Sunday. So Butterworth says this. He said, God is not to be found. Anybody in agreement with that? Couple. God is not to be found. He said, there's never a time when we can seek more God. Do you have enough of God? Because I want more. I want more. And it occurs to me that there's no more God here at UnityCR than there is at the Handy Mart down on the corner. Right? I think maybe that some people still walk the earth, and it's okay with me. They walk the earth believing that God is in their church. It's true. God is at the Handy Mart. God is, here's my favorite quote about that. There is no spot where God is not. I stole that from Laura Mead in the youth education program. So here's more metaphysical news, one of my favorite topics, and it gets a little dangerous. God is not a she or a he. God is not a person. My favorite Annie Lamott quote, we know we've made God in our image and likeness when God hates all the same people we do. We so easily in this box, this framework of religion, we so easily make God spirit, source, life, substance, mind in our image. God isn't a place, God isn't a being, and God is not a he or she. We now know God as allness. God is allness. Can we just say that? God is allness, in which you and I exist in eachness, because you can still put ness on the end of any word. So each soul in a skin suit is an element, it's a product, it's a tiny speck of, this is a goosebump moment. We are a tiny speck of the infinite whole. We are one mind, we are one heart, we are one breath. We are one love, we are one peace. Wherever we go, we are one. And you all have heard the term we're expressions of God. One definition of expression is to press out. So think about this energy that we come in with that is pressing out of us. And I feel like some days it has to work really hard in my life to press out. And then other days are a piece of cake. And that's when I feel very ministerial, when God is pressing out easily. And there's another definition, produce inherited characteristic. You got to go a ways in the definition to find that, but I think it's very cool. Produce inherited characteristic. Think about the characteristics that we know or have defined or think we know, the characteristics of allness. Think about the perfection of the absolute realm. Think about the perfection, the wholeness, the depth of God mind. Think about the substance out of which we came. The substance out of which we came. It is the divine blueprint of each and every one of us, of all of us. And when we think of ourselves as only human, well, I'm only human, it's messy, it's the way I am. I will credit ministry for putting me through the fire and helping me to create something different. Something different than I was a month ago or a year ago or 10 years ago or 15. I'm trying to count how many years I've been in the ministry, and math is not coming to me. So when we think of ourselves in that limited way, when we think of ourselves as only human, we are forgetting our divine nature. And this divine nature is the reality of us, capital R. It is the reality of us, metaphysically speaking. And catch this, the depths with which we are willing to explore our inner self equals the degree to which we express our divine nature. Hear that again? The degree to which we are willing, the depth to which we're willing to explore our inner self is the degree to which we express the allness, the wholeness. And wouldn't you agree that part of this exploration, some of us have been on the path a very short time, some of us have been on for many decades, and part of our spiritual journey requires us to let go of knowing our human nature as our entire identity. I just had a flashback. We had a group several years ago that met once a month, and it was called Meta Musings. I will always remember the evening that we were talking about this concept of you are divine. And there was a woman, she since moved away from Cedar Rapids. At the time, she was in her mid-80s. She had found us like just a year or two earlier. Grown up in a church all of her life, been associated with religion all of her life, and she shared with the group that it wasn't until she stepped in through these doors that she learned she is a divine being in her mid-80s. And I wept when she told that story. She is so grateful to know the truth about herself. So part of our work is to let go of human being as our whole identity. You know, we talked about that image and likeness, making God in our image. There's two creation stories. The first one I lied, this is the second one. Then God said, let us make humankind in our image and according to our likeness. Butterworth talks about that scripture saying this may be the most majestic statement in the Bible. The image is us, and as God sees us, and the likeness is that which we must work out in our consciousness and outform in our body, in our lives. In other words, within us is the unborn possibility of limitless life. That's our image. And ours is the privilege of giving birth to the limitless life. That is the likeness. The image, life, pure energy of life. The likeness, what that looks like coming from us. Butterworth says this is something that's your responsibility. Make a note. Likeness is up to me. He breaks down the term image and likeness. He breaks that down to I-image. And the I-image is our divine nature. It is pure possibility, pure potential. In Christianity, divine nature might be known as the Christ, which is not Jesus' last name. I think if I were gonna have a plot, I would put that on the headstone. Damn it. Christ is not Jesus' last name. Christ is a divine consciousness. It's an expression of divine mind. And we can't run out of, we can't be rid of, we can never be separate from the I am. I can never be separate from the I am. I am created in the image of life, in the image of substance, in the image of source, of principle. And I create the likeness of law, of mind, of substance, of source, of spirit. Now remember when we said we can't find more God? Check the Handy Mart on your way home. We also can't be more spiritual. Anybody want to be more spiritual than you are right now? Yeah, it sounds kind of good. I mean, so here's the truth. Our nature, our God-given characteristic is being wholly spiritual. And we must keep expressing into the wholeness of our spirit being. We must lean into that to express our true nature, because we can never be anything less than spiritual. And remember the equation: the degree, the depth to which we are willing to explore our whole self is the degree that we express our spirituality. And we need to know that stepping into that, fully expressing that, is about waking up. It's about mindfulness. It's about becoming aware of the I am that we already are. And this waking up, this awareness, is a recognition of our true identity, the truth of us. Now, I want to touch on that word potential and possibility for a minute, because don't you think that could imply like something in the future? Like, if it's potential or possibility, like I don't have it right now. I may have it, in my next decade or maybe in my next lifetime. So, Butterworth assures us that our potential, our field of possibilities, is a reality before we even begin to dig deep to uncover it. Newsflash. That's what Jesus' parable is about the pearl in the field. It's already there, and it's up to us to uncover it. We came into this world with this living truth, this living spirituality within us. It's also true of the people we don't like. And it's also true of the people we judge and condemn and write nasty posts about on Facebook. It's true of everyone. There's a great scripture in Corinthians, and at tired old weddings, you hear the 1 through 12. The love is this and that. But the really cool scripture is verse 12. For now, we see in a mirror dimly. For now, in my limited human, I'm only human, I see in a mirror dimly. But then, when I know the truth of myself, but then we shall see face to face. Now I know only in part, but then I will know fully. Catch this, even as I have been known. What Spirit has known about me since before we started marking time, I can be. So today we might look in the mirror and ask, who do you think you are? We may think we're a mess. We may think we're brilliant. We may think we're invisible. There's a whole lot of stories about ourselves. And here's the truth. Here's the capital T truth of you and me. We are divine. We are the I am edge of substance. And we have the capacity to deal with what life brings. Yes?
Yes.
We know we'll get through it. Yes?
Yes.
And we know as a spiritual community that we will do this with divine love, with divine wisdom, and most certainly with grace. Yes?
Yes.
And we will do it well. Let's meditate on that. And we will do it well. It is my prayer this morning for those in the live stream and those sitting here in the physical. If you have heard this message before, if it's not your first news flash about your divine nature, it is my prayer that we are able to take this to a much deeper level than we did up until now. The I image. I am. The very image. I am the very inherited characteristics of spirit, of source, of creator, of substance. Let's mindfully breathe into this truth. I am the divine image of truth. I am a phenomenal, beautiful, amazing expression of the allness. I am here and now, in this place, in this time, in this world, in this universe, for a very specific purpose. I am here to be the likeness of divine love. I am here to be the likeness of faith. I am here to be the likeness of divine understanding, knowing that God is in the midst, knowing that God stands under all things. So as we move toward the silence this morning, I invite a conscious opening of our heart space, a conscious waking up in consciousness to the truth of who we came here to be. I am. Be still and know. is. Amen.